Hi, I'm Brian Lally, the union rep for PSU-AAUP, and I'm here today to talk not about bargaining, but about something a little different that's very specific to academic professionals, and that is workload. In the past couple of months, I've been hearing from a number of APs who have real concerns about the workload they've been given and how to deal with that. And also, an AP approached me and asked me to specifically do a video about workload for APs, because while this person has been trying to spread the word about how to deal with these things, it maybe have a little more reach if I do a video and it goes out to everybody. So here we are. So APs have been experiencing a lot of workload issues lately, and I'm going to break it into two areas because there's two kind of different scenarios. So in the contract, Article 17, Section 9 deals with flexible scheduling. That's where, if in your job, it's kind of cyclical in that, like, maybe 1 or 2 weeks every term, you're really busy. Maybe at the beginning of the term or around grading or something like that. There's predictable times when you're going to work more than you usually would, working extra hours. The contract says in those cases, go to your supervisor and say, hey, how can we work out a flexible schedule so that I'm working these extra hours this week, maybe I'll work fewer hours the following week, or after this 2-week period, it gets adjusted down the road. So that's a conversation to have with the supervisor and figure out how that flexibility might happen. Now, it's not necessarily going to be a exact hour for hour exchange. Like, I worked 50 hours this week, and so I'm going to work only 30 hours next week. But something to, as the contract says, to recognize and acknowledge the work-life balance ideals that are stated in the contract. So have that conversation with your supervisor. Maybe you can get a full hour-for-hour exchange, but the idea is something close to that. So have those conversations with your supervisor. And if these are predictable times, like the beginning of the term and the end of the term, there's certain spots where it's going to be really busy. Go to your supervisor beforehand and just kind of put a bug in their ear and say, hey, it's going to be a busy time. I anticipate working extra hours, so I'm going to be coming to you afterwards to discuss how many hours I worked and what kind of flexibility agreement we can work out to make up for that. So again, talk to them beforehand so they're ready for that conversation when it happens. But I expect the bigger problem people are experiencing is with excessive workload on an ongoing basis, because PSU, as you know, has made some layoffs and cut some vacancies that have caused APs to have to take on either new duties they weren't responsible for previously, or doing more of the work you're already doing because there's fewer people around to do it. Well, the part of the contract that deals with that is Article 17, Section 10, excessive workload. It's a very different conversation, but one that there is a process in the contract to deal with it. So if you are being given new things, new duties to perform, as well as the duties you already had, or you're being asked to do more of the duties you already had, you need to go to your supervisor and talk to them about that and make them state the priorities. Hey boss, previously I was doing duties 1 through 5, now I'm doing 1 through 8. So now that I've got these 8 things, which are the most important for me to get done? If I can't get some of them done, and that may happen, what are the ones you absolutely think I need to get done so that the wheels keep rolling? And have them make that decision and let you know, because that's their job. It's their job to prioritize your work. It's not your job to guess at what's the most important thing and hope you're right. It's their job to prioritize these things. So ask them to do that for you. And after you've had that conversation, I think it's important to send an email to the supervisor afterwards, summarizing your conversation. Tell them, hey, my understanding of our conversation was that these are the priorities, and these are the higher priorities, these are the lower priorities, and I'll get the work done as best I can. And that way there's a record of the conversation. So if down the road there's some discrepancies, some misunderstanding, wait a minute, I told you this, not that, at least you have that email to fall back on and say, look, I sent you my understanding of it and I didn't hear back, or you wrote back confirming it. So that's kind of the agreement we're operating from. So let's say you have that conversation with your supervisor and you can't come up to an agreement you think is going to work. The contract says then we form an ad hoc committee of you, your supervisor, an HR person, and a union rep. And we sit down in a meeting and talk about what the issues are and how best to address them in a way that's going to work for you, so you have a reasonable workload that you can manage. If that doesn't come up with a solution that's satisfactory to you, then the union has a right to file a grievance on your behalf, and we can go to the grievance process to try to resolve it. Now, I do want to say a couple words about the fact that you are overtime exempt, which so if you work, say, 42, 43 hours, you're only getting paid for 40 because you're exempt. while PSU can expect you to work a couple extra hours on occasion, the contract says you're expected to work about 2,080 hours a year, which works out to 40 hours a week. So really, by and large, you should be working about 40 hours a week. Now, I have heard from an AP who told me there was a time, or there have been times in her work here, where she worked 70 to 80 hours a week. Please don't do that. There's a number of reasons that's a bad idea. First of all, your personal health and well-being, that's a lot of, you are literally working 2 jobs. If you're working 80 hours a week, you're working 2 jobs. And that's a bad thing for not just your health and welfare, but also the university's operations. So you doing those 2 jobs means that they're getting twice as much work out of you as they should be. Now, I admire a person's devotion to the mission and to the university to put in that extra time, but that's not doing you any good, because you're not getting paid for it, you're not getting credit for it, and the university has a skewed idea of how much work you're actually doing. They think you're doing 40 hours of work. If you're doing far more than that, then they think your workload is sustainable. Not the case. Obviously not the case. Also, if you're doing that much work, but the person next to you is only doing 40 hours of work a week, they look like they're being unproductive, because as far as the manager knows, the amount of work you're getting done is 40 hours, so everybody else should be getting that much work done as well. So please don't work really excessive hours. If that's happening, again, have that conversation with your supervisor. Contact me if you want some more coaching on how to approach your supervisor about that. Please contact me. I'd be glad to talk you through it. And really, this is about your work-life balance, your physical, mental well-being. So hopefully you will take this to heart. And again, I would encourage you to contact me if you have any questions about this or want to talk through it. So, okay, have a great day.